Let them eat cake. It's the most famous line she never said. For more than 2 centuries, we've been told that Marie Antoinette was a shallow, cake-obsessed queen who ignored a starving nation and partied while Paris burned. A spoiled aristocrat who fiddled while France collapsed. But what if I told you that Marie Antoinette was actually the first victim of a massive, state-sponsored, fake news campaign? A propaganda war so effective that it destroyed her reputation for 200 years and literally cost her her head. Today we're stripping away centuries of lies to find the real woman behind the guillotine. And trust me, the truth is far more interesting than the legend. Let's set the scene. It is 1770, and you are a 14-year-old girl from Austria. Your mother is the most powerful woman in Europe, Maria Theresa, Empress of Austria, and she has just arranged your marriage to the future King of France to secure a political alliance. It sounds glamorous. It wasn't. At the French border, Marie Antoinette was stripped completely naked, everything, including her underwear, to symbolically remove all traces of Austria before she could enter France. Her clothes were taken. Her dog was taken. Even her friends were taken away. She was handed over like a package, dressed in French clothing, and sent to meet a 15-year-old boy who would rather pick locks than talk to his new wife. Louis XVI was awkward, to put it kindly. He was shy, overweight, obsessed with hunting and metalwork, and it took him 7 years to consummate the marriage. 7 years. Imagine being a teenage girl at the most gossip-filled court in Europe, while everyone whispers about why you still haven't produced an heir. Versailles wasn't a palace. It was a performance. Every moment of Marie's life was public. Getting dressed in the morning was a ceremony with dozens of people watching. Going to the bathroom was monitored. Privacy did not exist. And the French court nobility hated her from day one because she was Austrian, the traditional enemy of France. So where did all the hatred come from? Enter the libelles. These were the 1700s version of toxic tabloids mixed with political attack ads. Illegal underground pamphlets filled with scandal, pornography, and outright lies. And they were brutal. France had serious problems. Massive national debt from funding the American Revolution, failed harvests causing bread shortages, and a tax system that let the rich avoid paying while the poor starved. Marie Antoinette became the perfect scapegoat. The libelles didn't just criticize her, they obliterated her. They called her l'Autrichienne, a pun meaning both the Austrian and the Austrian bitch. They invented stories about affairs with Swedish diplomats, French nobles, and even her own brother-in-law. They accused her of being a lesbian, of hosting orgies at Versailles, of bankrupting France with shopping sprees. One famous pamphlet depicted her as a monster draining France's treasury. Another showed her in explicit sexual scenes with various lovers. All completely fabricated. But people believed it because it was printed. And that infamous cake quote? Total fiction. The phrase, "let them eat brioche," had been floating around Europe for more than a century before Marie Antoinette ever set foot in France. The philosopher Rousseau mentioned it in 1765, when Marie was only 9 years old and still living in Austria. But the revolutionaries pinned it on her anyway because it perfectly fit the story they wanted to tell. A heartless, out-of-touch queen. Things got even worse in 1785 with the diamond necklace affair. A scandal so absurd it sounds like a modern streaming series. A con artist named Jeanne de la Motte convinced Cardinal de Rohan that the Queen secretly wanted him to buy an insanely expensive diamond necklace, worth roughly $12 million in today's money, but could not do so publicly. Jeanne hired a prostitute to dress up like Marie Antoinette and meet the cardinal in the gardens of Versailles to confirm the plan. The cardinal bought the necklace on credit, handed it over, and Jeanne immediately broke it apart and sold the diamonds. When the jewelers demanded payment, the entire scheme collapsed. Here's the key point. Marie Antoinette had absolutely nothing to do with it. She was completely innocent. But because her name was attached to the scandal, the public assumed she was guilty. In their minds, she had bankrupted France for jewelry. Her reputation was destroyed 5 years before the French Revolution even began. By this point, she wasn't a person anymore. She was a symbol. Her biggest mistake? Wanting a private life in a world that demanded she be a public spectacle every minute of the day. In 1783, she built the Hameau de la Reine, a small village on the grounds of Versailles. It had cottages, a working farm, a mill, and livestock. Marie wore simple linen dresses and pretended to be a milkmaid, feeding chickens and churning butter. To her, it was an escape from suffocating court life, a place where she could relax and raise her children herself. Something she did, breaking royal tradition by refusing to hand them off to nannies. But to the starving public, it looked obscene. While real peasants couldn't afford bread, the Queen appeared to be playing dress-up in a fantasy farm. Intent didn't matter. Context didn't matter. All they saw was mockery. When the French Revolution erupted in 1789, the propaganda had already done its work. Marie Antoinette was no longer seen as human. On October 5th, 1789, thousands of women marched on Versailles demanding bread. Guards were killed. The palace was invaded. The royal family was forced to relocate to Paris as prisoners. Over the next 4 years, everything collapsed. Louis was executed in January 1793. Marie's son was taken from her and imprisoned. Her daughter was locked away. Marie herself was transferred to the Conciergerie, a medieval prison where she spent her final months in a cold, damp cell. At her trial in October 1793, the charges were absurd. Treason, draining the treasury, sending military secrets to Austria. And then came the most disgusting accusation of all. They accused her of sexually abusing her own son. Even the revolutionary crowd recoiled. Marie stood and said, "I appeal to all mothers present. Is such a crime possible?" For a moment, the propaganda cracked. She was no longer a monster. She was a mother. But it was too late. She was sentenced to death. On October 16th, 1793, just after midday, Marie Antoinette was executed at the Place de la Révolution. She was 37 years old. Her hair had turned white from stress. She was weak, likely suffering from uterine cancer. But she walked to the guillotine with dignity. Her final words were an apology to the executioner for stepping on his foot. Even after her death, the propaganda continued. But over time, historians re-examined the evidence and found mostly lies. Marie Antoinette was not a saint. She was privileged. She made mistakes. She was often out of touch. But she was not the monster history created. She was a teenage girl forced into an impossible role, destroyed by one of the most successful propaganda campaigns ever recorded? Nah. So the next time you hear that cake quote, remember this. The truth is rarely sweet, and it's almost always more complicated. Marie Antoinette's story is not just about one queen. It's a warning about propaganda, scapegoating, and what happens when we stop seeing people as human. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's greatest character assassination, like and subscribe for more history debunked. And tell me in the comments, which historical figure do you think was unfairly destroyed by propaganda? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.